Welcome to the Arrow Points Podcast. I'm your host, author and veteran Jeff Clark. If you like the show, please remember to give it a follow on social media and consider leaving a 5-star review. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well on your favorite platform. Today, we're talking about an agency that sounds made up, but I promise you, it's not. It's the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. Let's go. So I'm going to tell you how I ran across the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and I was doing research on another topic that's going to be in a later episode on China and some of the things that China is doing here in the United States to kind of get the tactical, strategic, and mental advantage over us. And I was looking at Travis Air Force Base and the land surrounding it, and we'll discuss that in a later episode. But I saw on Google Maps the different agencies that was on Travis Air Force Base, and they have the little icons on there, and you can see them. And I saw one that said Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and I was like, that's not real. That sounds like something out of Hollywood, out of a Mission Impossible movie or something like that. So I wrote it down, continued my research, and I went back, and sure enough, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency is a real thing. It is 100% an agency underneath the Department of Defense. In fact, here's some knowledge for you. Let me pull out my notes here. The DTRA, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, was founded in October of 1998. Before that, it was the Defense Special Weapons Agency back in 96. Before that, it was the Defense Nuclear Agency from 71 to the mid-90s. Before that, Defense Atomic Support Agency, 50s through 70s. Armed Forces Special Weapons Project from 47 to 59. And the Manhattan Project from 42 to 46. That's where it originated from. So, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency has always been around. In fact, it's headquartered at Fort Belvoir in Virginia and has over 21 employees, military and civilian, with an annual budget of $2 billion. Now, you might be asking yourself, what the heck does the Defense Threat Reduction Agency do? Well, it was established, and what it's doing now today is countering weapons of mass destruction. That's biological, chemical, radiological, nuclear, and other high explosives. And it supports the nuclear enterprise. The stated mission is to provide cross-cutting solutions to enable the Department of Defense, the United States government, and international partners to deter strategic attacks against the United States and its allies, as well as prevent, reduce, and counter WMD and emerging threats, and prevail against WMD armed adversaries in crisis and conflict. Now, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency has a long history of getting involved in different projects and different things in history, to include other countries and the United Nations, chemical weapons of very different magnitudes, but they've even gotten involved in some very unique projects like the Ebola outbreak. And from 2003 to 2014, DTRA spent approximately $300 million on scientific R&D efforts, developing vaccines against a lot of things like the viral hemorrhaging fever. Can't even say it. Sorry. Hemorrhaging fever, including Ebola. That's when the agency started working with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and they tried really, really hard to come up with something that would prepare them for a biopreparedness initiative outbreak like Ebola, specifically the Ebola strains. Now, why is that unique and important? Because if you remember, back in the mid-2010s, somewhere in there, probably was like 2013, 2014, there was the Ebola outbreaks here in the United States, and specifically one in Dallas. I remember this vividly because I was actually on active duty at the time, and I was on an emergency medical team that deployed within 72 hours. We were a very unique team, one of its kind, stationed down in San Antonio. And our mission was to rapidly deploy anywhere in the world within 72 hours with this very unique medical setup that we could take a lot of different things in, specifically unique things like Ebola. And we were actually tasked to go down to Dallas when there was the Dallas Ebola outbreaks, and we were going to actually help FEMA out. We didn't wind up going, but we got the call, and we got the head nod, and we were working on getting ready to go when they called us off because FEMA had some other plans. But DTRA has been involved in a lot of other things outside of Ebola. In fact, it was one of the lead program managers on designing, testing, contracting, and producing the Transport Isolation System, or TIS, which is a sealed, self-contained patient containment system that can be loaded on the Air Force's C-17 Globemaster and the C-130 Hercules cargo aircraft. That's really, really important because it gives us a very unique opportunity to treat patients in an isolated situation, especially with diseases like Ebola, even the coronavirus, where we don't know how artificial they are or how man-made they are or how organic they are. Very unique things. They also got involved in serious chemical weapons back in 2014. And they helped fund, manage, and test the Massive Ordnance Penetrator bomb. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. The MOP bomb. It's a very unique bomb, 30,000 pounds, 20.5 foot long. It's dropped from a B-52 or a B-2 bomber at high altitude. It can penetrate up to 200 feet of reinforced concrete. The MOP bomb contains a 5,300-pound explosive charge, more than 10 times the explosive power of its predecessor, which was the BLU-109, often referred to as the Bunker Buster. Here's one that really kind of piqued my interest when I was doing some research on the DTRA, which was Project Maximus. What is Project Maximus? The DTRA was a task force that was identifying, collecting, and securing radiological material in Iraq as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, including almost 2 tons of low-enriched uranium, several tons of other kinds of uranium. And the task force members also secured the yellow cake uranium in Iraq, in a city I can't say the name of, which was turned over to the Iraqi Ministry of Science and Technology. But it was also 550 tons of yellow cake that were sold in 2008 to Chemeco, a uranium producer in Canada. Project Maximus is a little interesting. Might be something we have to cover on a later episode. Here's why I question COVID-19, and I'm sure some of you who are listening probably do as well. That's because agencies like the DTRA were involved in COVID-19. In late 2019, the DTRA actually established the Discovery of Medical Countermeasures Against Novel Entities program. Shortly afterwards, the COVID-19 pandemic began. And this program started researching the existing and pre-approved medications like Pepcid for potential cost-effective treatments to COVID-19. Funny how that agency was established as a task force to look at those countermeasures, and they even started up an own program. And then boom, the pandemic started. Odd. Now, the DTRA has a long history, like I told you earlier, going all the way back to the Manhattan Project in the 40s, and even becoming the Defense Nuclear Agency and being kind of the lead on the Armed Forces Special Weapons projects for almost 50 years. Now, that is really, really interesting because the whole purpose of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency is to help kind of support the nuclear triad as well as give us countermeasures towards the nuclear problem. What I want to hear from you is, what do you think of this secretive agency that I didn't know of? I was in the military for almost 20 years. I've been studying the government for the last 15 or so, and I never heard of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And in fact, again, I found it on accident while researching on Google Maps. What do you think of the DTRA? Drop a like or a comment into the comments section and tell me what you think about it, and see if you can find up any good juicy details about the DTRA. And thanks for listening. If you like this episode and you want to see more, hit that follow and subscribe button. Make sure you're following along. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review because it's much appreciated. Give us a follow on social media and head over to jeffclarkofficial.com for more. And remember, stay sharp, stay informed, and stay engaged.